Been meeting at 10:44. Council has let Brett lead this very detailed series of documents here. Any clarification of any of it, now is the time, but there's the correspondence between us and the department that's been included to clarify those issues, as well as a briefing note. The first part of your agenda, there's the briefing note from Elizabeth Robinson, the TMR. So, Brett, over to you.
On the Barcombe Common, as you're aware. If we're going to have the bike trails, vehicles and possible for the I suppose that all our commons are effectively. So, do have to make sure that we're complying with the law. So, Morgan and myself had two, maybe three video conferences with the legislation branch at TMR. So they and by the minister, the minister. The advice was they wouldn't do that. They haven't done it anyway. Which is in the Act that authority is there, but the minister. So, with their advice, there was 4 elements that we had to do. They're not a road. One was the physical access, so where the trails start. I need so that people do have to actually go past the signs to enter. Secondly was the digital access, so creating an app. That people are signing Third one is discussion with met with the sergeant, Barclay, and confirmed the five of those. Met all those conditions once that signage has been ordered, the new signage. So and we did a risk assessment process with the previous CEO. Assessment. For any of it activities, and including swimming pools, that this process is supervised activities. Signage, getting an app, and we can offer experiences in our communities.
Is the stock that you've spoken about common? These other ones are Queensland government stock routes, different rules.
Mr Mayor, the interpretation of them not being a road, signage or the advertising, like the map there, that crosses the Landsborough Highway. Okay, unless we literally have a fence right next to the trail, there's nothing to stop anyone recreational purposes, just I would assume it originally was to keep cattle, but it's for townspeople,
Horses mainly, but yes.
horses, well, sorry, livestock. happy to take correction, but I couldn't see anywhere where it says and stopping, demounting, or the Barkey Icisford Road. It may be somewhere else. Personally, and from council's point of view, I think it's a higher risk activity than the rec park, spread out over 60 kilometres.
Why that trail, there's only one trail that crosses the highway, why does it cross the highway? Why isn't it on the one side? Black, oh,
No, that's
no, that's the Alice River.
Serpentine.
Was it
So
Black?
that map doesn't actually define where the, assume somewhere where that, I think it's Mulgus. Yeah,
Would be my guess, but
yeah.
I'm guessing.
So does,
So definitely at the Barkey Icisford Road. Slow down, there's actually a barrier.
saying 99% of the, it's not a road because it's on our common. Still, I don't agree that we have publicly access just by having a fence at the start point, because there's nothing to stop anyone. Cattle on the common, initially I thought it was, first impression was a pretty good idea. So sold on it now. Spent 110,000.
Legally, there should be no.
They've been flying past the wind forever, unless take an enforcement approach and some don't.
State just goes through the, over the grid through, check into Barkey Red, drives the rail, rides the rail to the trails.
Even go through John Miller Estate, it's illegal if they're unlicensed.
Need to start here, and that we said that we fenced it. There's still public access to all of it.
King and Co gave us the advice initially, what we have to do. Assessing, so they Tell you what the law says. Okay. And not necessarily interpret the law. It's only according to that. Spoke to TMO, it was about the access at the start of the road. Experiences where it starts, and that's where they're.
There's access, well, that one, it's only on the southern side of the Isisford Road, so does that mean you've still got to access it there, ride through?
The way I read it is, yes, that's what you're supposed to.
All the other tracks seem to, is the one that, on the south of Isisford Road. Looks like it starts there and loops back.
Yeah, it's really a continuation of that orange trail. But you have to start on it and then branch off and do the Mulga, and then return via.
Because it's only one directional, so whether it's clockwise or counterclockwise, you'd have to.
Trying to access the other end, that's right. And then complete that because you can only go in one direction. Wild dog to get back, yeah, that's what I said.
My ignorance, but where does the Isisford Road take off the main highway?
Well,
The Alice River is, so it's sort of roughly.
between the orange and the
I
black.
think it, yeah, then runs in between the black and the orange and sort of follows the river around.
So that you're saying is one of those trails crosses the Isisford Road?
No,
Basically comes in here, and I say, or I would say it dissects
either
here,
one.
but that's the Landsborough Highway, so even if we're going in under the bridge there, we're coming back across the highway. So if you want to ride that one, you've got to start here,
Register for a digital
So where did
pass.
you
do that.
Where did you see that this one's going across that autonomy, that highway?
So you've got to get the digital pass. So you go onto it there. So they make sure you've got that digital pass.
It does say that QP has counsel and can ask you for it, and just and you're not registered, then traffic operations register.
If any of it, whether the marker is there or not. Legal. So
This gives them an opportunity to make it legal.
And the guy
entrance way at the start. Okay. Was it there or not? It's illegal.
Councillor Arthur, I've heard your on the basis that whilst it is an imperfect system of exclusion, that's been occurring for decades on our town common, some form of cover for people. I think lovely if we could have it, you know, showgrounds where we can actually facilitate control. I think the sneak or the attempt or the just random ride off, you could ride off the bucky. Lanesborough Highway, all the Isisford Road probably should be registered, but once again, go back to that we, I mean, the departmental advice here and QPS advice is we've demonstrated an attempt to, or demonstrated a clear advising as an activity to a central point that requires registration due to obvious processes like signage and certainly not. Goal and us doing what is probably a more laissez-faire style approach.
See that it equates to
Just sitting here thinking and listening. What if our RLO is doing a common muster?
This would be closed then for the weekend.
For that time? Yep. Okay. Points made about crossing these roads needs to be clarified.
Yeah, I just texted Boyd, he's indicated he doesn't cross the highway, so.
because through you, Mr. Mayor, I thought there was some discussion about whether that's an old.
Crossing the Lanesborough Highway.
And even the interaction, I know I'm repeating myself, but the interaction over the Isisford Road, it may well be the better riding, but start point, like access and egress point there. You can take your bike out on a trailer or a ute. Whatever, like, that we had a management plan, same to the rec park. Because like I said before, I think it's a higher risk activity than the rec park. Because of the speed, well, unregulated speed.
About anyone that goes in there now without going through that entry point is illegal. Is that correct, Rick?
No matter where you go in now, that's what you said then.
Yeah.
Registered
Registered
bike,
helmet.
you're fine.
And you can go, so those commons and they're open for people to use. So they can still go, if they're licensed, they can still go wherever they like. Okay.
This just, the only purpose for this is to allow
Councillors, further thoughts? Answer.
Well, if they've done their research on it, his map may be wrong.
Concept of it. I'm just a little bit dubious about the actual crossing. Thank you.
The road there.
When you go up to the barrier, you dismount across.
Part of the risk assessment is definitely part of the risk assessment that was done. Sharp curve.
Yeah, like a little gateway, you know, like not a physical gate, but it was something that they, yeah, because it was quite twisty that they were redoing it to bring it back.
Councillors?
Yeah, start. So I don't think age, I would say experience.
discussion. I think the council is aware they're going to be on this, whatever. So I wish to add further to their comments before we go to a formal vote. Those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried 4-3. Found some more money. Five was for. $500. Now, part of that was because that was funded through another grant scheme, Works for Wesley. Now, some of that funding will still be required. We are up to date, as is mentioned in a number of your reports, Jenny. So that work will, and a few other minor upgrades, potentially. So we still need to spend a portion of that money. Hence why the recommendation here is for a lower contribution, because that will be that 200,000, of course, we've already design construction drawings.
Design construct project,
Yeah,
oh, we've got.
So the recommendation here is that we design with cost estimate of 6 million. Of concrete and steel and first. Yeah.
So I'm still waiting on the copies. What that's it's based on. Oh, so yeah, so there's been 2 rounds, Mr. Mayor. Applied in round 4. Our feedback was we asked for too much money, we need to downgrade it, so the second time round we asked for round. Yep. And the feedback on the
Mr Mayor, what amount are we actually putting in funding for?
6 million.
6 million.
Waiting for the quantity surveyor to come back to us, but that's our estimate at this 6 million. Our contribution would be for 200,000, it doesn't matter what they come back with.
So, do we need 2 swimming pools?
The NDIS participants, hydrotherapy, learn to swim, that, and the age of it, probably not indefinite, 25-metre pool long term is more practical perhaps. So that's why the 2 times that we've submitted this previously, smaller.
So with the extension of the hours that we might be looking at, time during the day to fit some of those other groups in.
Well, learn to swim activities don't have to operate.
Spend it on something.
Mr Mayor, we've discussed this quite a few times. Considerable amount of work over here to keep.
That's why our contributions dropped in this.
Tim's been no.
Okay, sorry.
It's got to, yeah, the investigations, we've just got to sit down and get the information together with on the pill for a lot of years, but they unfortunately have been on extended leave and extended it again, so we're going to work with someone else.
When we did all the community. There was the option, because we came up with this option of building the smaller undercover for the learn to swim training, hydrotherapy.
Yeah, excuse me, yeah. Altering the plan, if we're going to alter the plan before we approve the resolution.
Alter the plan here, councillor, please.
Councillor Peoples with the 25-metre pool, and we've still got an existing 50-metre building all around it, and then in another 12 months' time.
No. Is that right?
The information's coming together, yeah, we budgeted to do it, yeah.
So part of 50 metre pool. No.
park's used to it, but we're assumption that we don't get it, we're upgrading the filtration. Building the splash pad and the new amenities and the exterior, the 50-metre pools. It was originally, that's correct.
In the first one. Both.
I'm hoping that when this new pool could be constructed, it could save us some maintenance on the old one. Filtration to do both.
Self too.
It's still got 15 years life, I think, the assessment.
Yeah, that was, Tim Smith, that was the report that we got from, yeah.
What's the life?
15 years.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I did not realise that. That's the first time I've been told that. The last time I was thinking and looking at anything to do with swimming pool, I thought that the large pool had problems. If it's only the filtration system that's got problems and not the pool.
Pipe work, which is part of the work that we'll do.
Last round, we elected to not, that it was okay, we'd get away with it. Life than we had initially thought. Councillor Plum, second.
Second that, Mr. Mayor, just because I think second that to be approve the application.
Over there, we should be building the 50-metre pool. I think the night that we had that community discussion, there's a lot of discussion about the 50-metre pool being the top priority due to swimming times and everything. And I just, fixing the 50-metre pool right up, then building the 25 beside it. At what point, Mr. Mayor?
It was a while ago, and I'll ask the same question again. If we vote on this resolution now, are they can anybody come in and alter that? Can we?
Altered, but I think switching placement of a 50-metre pool, then the wording that goes with and so that would be calling the question. If it's the location of something or the orientation of something, no problem. But if it So, yes, you can change, but depends what you want to change and the impact it would have on.
in a splash, you know, and to be pulling down overkill to me.
Say, you've been told 15 years, but let's say 10 to 15 years, we've got to turn around and find another 6 to 10 million to do the 50 metre.
If you're going to replace it.
It's the 50 metre pool sometime in the future.
Extra time, then when they were sort of given the option of a 25 metre heated. Pool will be gone, that's where
Mr. Mayor, there's only one thing I'd like to say is, if we got this grant and we do put in the 25 metre pool, don't get the grant, at some stage or other, we're still going to have to replace that 50 metre pool 10, 15 years down the track. So whether we get this grant or not, in my opinion, is not going to make any difference to that 50 metre pool. But at least we have got some sort of pool there in the interim until such time as we can get.
Design and construct by the successful tenderer, so how they choose to use and what the most efficient technology they use will be up to the eventual designer. These are just concept drawings.
Yeah.
So the technical elements of whether you heat fire, like pipe, solar panels, all of that would be worked through by the supplier. Whole building that's going to be around one of the most homes. No comments, councillors?
Like, yeah, the concept's okay, I just feel as though that it's the, if there's solar panel and heated, obviously the operate. There's lots of things that change about it. But I'm ready for a vote.
Agree with Councillor Rogers and Councillor Hanson about the for times to go to state titles and everything. So I think it was, in my opinion, the number one priority.
Must have 50-metre field. Facilitate. One of them was a complete indoor. Said both, wasn't only the swim coach, it was the principal of the school, said that so they need
No, they're not. We've still got a 25-metre pool if the 50-metre pool fails. But the other thing too, Mr Mayor, is to say that you need the other small pool for learn to swim. 5-metre pools just across the swim, all our learn to swim is not done in a separate pool.
in another pool, no other town has a 50-metre pool.
5-metre pool, you can learn to swim in a 50-metre pool is what I'm saying.
So many users trying to use the pool at the same time, there was no room for the learners.
Same with Councillor Leeson. I agree that we chase $6 million to tidy that aquatic centre up over there, and I do think the splash pad really adds to it.
Problem is whatever we rest on today, as I said before to Councillor Gleeson, has to be the intent. So if the intent is not to, the council clearly indicate that today. It's the orientation of something or the scope, size of a particular entrance building or the number of toilets or those things can all be subsequently changed. But eliminate, so let a sizable element to remove, and put that into so that the grant reflected. Result of this vote. Favour. Against. Motion. This is called for division. Councillors Rogers, Dillon, Plum and Hanson in favour. And Pickles against. But you can't say agree with the concept if the concept is two pools.
Well, the concept's to spend $6 million on the new aquatic centre, so we agree with that. We want to change the plan, is what I said just previously.
Yourself.
Mr Mayor, I've been saying all the time, I agree with the concept. You need to go with the council.
On the basis that councillors Peebles and Gleeson voted against the motion on the basis that whilst agreeing with the concept, they were not comfortable with elements of the plan.
Concepts of the plan, was it?
Councillor Arthur may return.
His tongue's hanging out, Mr Mayor.
One.
Panting a bit.
Hello, Mr Mayor, I welcome. Sorting it up when I'm outside.
Yeah. And all sorts of things in your absence. Three, 8.
Yes, Mr Mayor, so last May we actually, then we also proposed the new corporate risk register at the same time. Council workshops now adopted the enterprise risk management framework back. Same terminology as we've used in the risk. In the corporate risk register that was adopted in December.
Yeah, just a comment, yeah, step in the right direction, risk management process. I think with some of the work that we've done over the last
Rogers moves, councillor Arthur seconds, those in favour? 7-0, 339. Somebody move that we receive the report. Councillor Peebles moves, councillor Plum seconds, those in favour? 7-0. 3310, rates discount, unless anybody wants to discuss that.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, back to, so we're only receiving the report, we don't.
That's the next financial year, so we'll set that through the budget
No,
process.
just want to clarify.
It's only if you want to change anything that before.
So, yeah, that's correct. We only need to take action if we wish to propose an alternative to what's presented. 3-3.
decision, so that's for review by council.
We substantiate, I understand the process, I just want to quickly get a little bit of background. This is were received or they were all sent, we know they were sent. Yeah, do I have a seconder? Councillor Hanson, is there discussion? There being none, those in favour? 7-0. See, I've had enough. 3-3-11. Oh, sorry, and for the benefit of the record, the officer's report had the names redacted, so councillors are not aware of the individual involved. Claim for resolution 3-3-10. We are now at 3-3-11, organisational structure.
So over the last 5 or 6 months, we've been discussing council, I've presented you with it's based on, it's still based on the functional structure as per the old structure. Yeah. Clear recording and responsibility lines for each of our broad functions that we perform. Does reduce the number of senior executives from 6 to 5. It brings approach to our operations. Once those clearer reporting lines, responsibility. Clear. This is the person who's responsible across the board to addressing problems such as water, which we've discussed this morning. For example, across the whole area, it's one person's responsibility, and to that.
One on the 2nd of December, that's correct, with our first budget workshop. Yes.
Some of the functions may have been rearranged, but it's still the same structure.
Some gardens would be run by one person for the whole 3 communities.
Responsible, there's still.
I don't personally structures broken. People are responsible for something that's happening in Aramac. But can I just,
They'll have to be careful because the changes in this could deal with contractual elements of their conditions of employment. So
can I ask them, do they think this structure will work?
Potentially have a conflict of interest.
So would you, Brett? You've had plenty to say.
Structure that I think is when you said about district managers, well, that is what this is about. They would be responsible for those areas.
we'll try to think about your request to ask staff on that. I'll just let councillors discuss this for a bit first. Councillor Plum, you had your hand up.
So do we call them portfolios or are they just works? Seems to be,
We all there now.
In terms of works, there's 3 senior works supervisors supporting.
Yeah, so the works is probably not new, is what I'm trying to point out. Maybe you still want to suggest perhaps there's too much there. The others that council people refer to are dead set new and the CEO, but the works column is no different really to what is over here under the green airports. So the green box on the first page, or the green boxes, are probably the same realistically as the orange on the. There's very little, if any, change there. The differences are in the yellow, blue and purple, where it's suggesting that there's too much there. Anyway,
my question is there too much there?
Which is, well, there's other senior staff there supporting that function. The issues with water. Add a solution for that.
That a good time of the year of the year? And are we physically able to, with, as you before mentioned, the contractual requirement?
Yeah, I did consider that, but that set a
Deadline,
date,
if
so.
we're going to do something, yes.
So, well, start of the new financial year is probably.
Further thoughts aside from the date?
Oh, just major change is the removal of the,
Oh, well, that's the one.
Especially with parks and gardens, how that's really going to work success. If one person in institute says at Alpha and something, that's probably about the only real issue I can see in that whole setup. Is I'm not sure how that would work successfully.
Councillor Gleeson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. We've had many lengthy discussions about it, but I just feel as though we need to involve some more, feel as though that there's that have not been talking to us. We have
Done a lot of work. Just,
Take a step back, so council. Of the workforce. To be, any change in the workforce. So there would be, which is why we need to put a date in the future for this to happen. We can't. So we go to the workforce, we talk to management. Is probably the most difficult. It is one of the most. And the options was, well, we put it under works, which adds to the works, back under work. Locally, so that is an option, and see that's the burden of works, and I suppose this was about sharing the workload a little bit more. Doesn't mean that, like, if someone's in charge of the land management, which includes parks and gardens, Doesn't mean that they're not, well, they will have to use local people on the ground, local supervisors to do the work, like
It's like the Director Works does.
local tractor works does. It's not, can't physically. Still needs work crews on the ground in each area to do the work. Structure, someone being responsible for it. Senior work supervisors have got enough work on their hands looking after to load parks and gardens onto, but that's I think previously, we got an example that where we have regionalised and there is activities in each area, each town. Still have the same people in the same towns doing the same work, but it's the reporting lines up.
Supervisors of the parks and gardens. That to whoever was the.
Before I go around again, my thoughts on it. There needs to be that community services works land management. There needs to be something in the title of those executive for or executive contact for those areas where they are going to be located. So they would have responsibility for land management, executive support, Alpha Direcco, or executive representation. I think there'd also need to be a clear direction from council. My thought would be that there needs to be a director based in each of those three areas, maintaining executive presence right throughout the council area. I think it's important that it's stipulated for a number of reasons, but the main reason is centralisation of personnel, which is a real fear in certain parts of our community, especially this is an attempt to improve that I wanted to point out. I think I did this at the first meeting. Every single member of our staff has a customer service responsibility to some extent when they interact with the public. So whilst the Director of Works may be here in Buckhorn or maybe in Aramac, even if there's an issues, just like a rates concern now, someone walks in with a concern about their rates notice or walking to an office in Muttaburra and want to combine their rates notice, the customer service officer there takes the inquiry and addresses it, puts them in contact with somebody and follows up. I'm not suggesting that we all do it great, but there's not an attempt here that, oh no, you've got a way to deal with somebody in another centre. I do think subject matter experts is a good. There's always challenges both ways. Sometimes the jack of all trades is a good fit, but then the reverse of that saying is master of none. every individual that we employ has a very definable skill set that differentiates them, and if we can harness that differentiation for the good of the whole council area, not just a certain section of it, then I believe that as cumbersome and as wordy as it may be, clearly need to indicate executive responsibility for a geographic location. I understand very clearly the synergy and the positives that can come from this, but it needs to be shown that these, and obviously we have existing executive staff, I've been very mindful, in fact, 2 of them are still in the room. As replacement occurs over time through attrition or retirement or other opportunities being sought, there needs to be a very clear intention from the structure setting and from the intent of council that replacements will be regionally located, not located centrally with a regional responsibility. Clearly enunciated in words to some, and in a bit more of a wordy title for some of these people, so we can have subject matter experts based regionally, representing regional concern, you know, in that there's an executive member there that can be in touch with issues right across the council area instead of being located in a central area, but that they then also have to reach out responsibly. I think, I understand the Parks and Gardens is a emotive issue. It's blunt, it is, it can be, it will forever consistently be. But if we didn't have local supervision, then it would be even more emotional concern. I consider our senior work supervisors to be, you know, assistant director of works for their region. It's the way they're pitched to me. Responsibility within our structure to maintain the road and street network maybe, then answering to somebody somewhere else, then I see the same potential for Parks and Gardens to be administered. Definitely think there needs to be a clear signal that whatever these titles are, whatever their responsibilities are, they will be based regionally. And secondly, they will be the executive contact still within their area for issues that may be outside. Just these general issues that we as councillors are no longer allowed to deal with under the Act, but put them in touch with a senior member of staff and they can very said last time, you can have the best structure in the world, not necessarily fit the boxes, it won't work, but you can also one to focus on customer service makes it work. So the intent to make the Buckball Regional Council the best place in Queensland to live has to come from every labour that's employed and however they report internally on that. It's a better place. So I'm happy enough. That's my personal opinion is going back to you in a minute. Clearly signify not only to the public and not only to the staff, but to not only to the lower reaches of our staff, but to management, CEO and the director district managers that these positions are to be located regionally now, tomorrow, adopted or a variant of the structure is in place, whatever it is. The old structure did that because it called them district managers for certain areas. I think that with executive responsibility for those other 2 regions other than Buckball needs to be very clearly put now. Perhaps it needs a subsequent version of this slide stating that, because today is not the day for the CEO to be allocating portfolios to staff. executive manager responsible for a certain area, but we could clearly indicate that those three Cove and Aramac Borough.
Staff. So just say the staff come up with, some really, what you think of. What happens, like, does it come?
Yeah, if we're going to manage, if council endorses it, I suppose it's more about how to make it work.
Councillor Peoples, you started, so I'm back to you.
So,
So I've met with the management team.
so was the positive, was the
Yeah.
positive
Obviously, everyone has different opinions. I don't know what you call negative feedback, constructive
Well,
feedback.
is there anyone there that said, I don't think this will work?
The joint consultant meeting.
At any meetings you've had with senior management or?
Well, that's not how the meetings work, it's more about being positive and trying to make it work.
People to come back to you and being honest and listen to each other, Brett, not just about.
Well, this has changed quite. Consultation.
I did miss a meeting, but we say Damien running things in Aramac or Paul running things in Alpha and Jen. Just, I think you can give roles of responsibility to the DMs now. Say, right, here's the areas where you have to be answerable for such and such. I think it just needs tweaking the structure we've got. But to go to these lengths here, I'm too that some of our staff think you're getting it wrong.
Gleeson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. CEO a moment ago said that if we adopt this, then the management, staff management can be, staff management and have discussions with them. But then, yeah, can it come back to us and we adopt this, is it adopted, is it done? It's, yeah, that we think of this depending on the next step.
So, organisational structure.
In the world that I'm in favour of adopting something now and
Plans.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I would agree with Councillor Lucy. I'd like to see it go out to the staff.
Rather.
Mr Mayor, I tend to agree that we endorse this structure. Ask the CEO to take it forward. I see and hope that there are some savings and improvements by that's a very simplised, overarching view of it all. Like there needs to be, and I assume there is, layers underneath that of the direct connections for reporting. And so it's, from my understanding, we're not getting rid of or it's just a matter of ultimately responsible. The CEO is ultimately responsible, but you have a layer in between that that has it's a bell curve. There'll be those that are dead against it, those that are dead for it. See it, or it's been in place for 12 months, we'll really understand the pros.
Small percentage of, well, and if you take community care out, it's already regionalised, so you take community care and the director of work staff out of it, then you're really looking at a very small percentage, significantly less than half of our staff that are affected anyway.
And sorry, one last thing. The personal position has to have the local connection and a general local responsibility as well. Just because they are in charge of community services doesn't mean maybe they have shared to them so that if we are doing a project in Jericho, then it can be scaled up or down or just
And also community involvement, like that you're not expecting a community engagement person to be based in one like. You're based in there, well, you might as well centralise them if you're not going to insist on that. Councillor Plum.
Yeah, I'm to the sure that heads of community service sure they're quite up with that, so I'm quite happy.
Really like
Council endorses the CEO to present the revised Blackwater Regional Council organisational structure to the staff. Council,
Mr Mayor, that really hasn't been.
council endorses the CEO of regarding the revised Blackwater Regional Council. May just draft here to delete revised. Well, before, full stop, sorry. New sentence would be feedback to council ahead of final approval by 30 June 22. Delete final, just make it approval, and there's a second amendment. Sorry.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Just one executive staff or total staff. We're going to ask the
No, the whole lot, like,
whole staff.
right through.
Those staff at least 50% or more. Day until this come up, so they weren't going to get an opinion.
You make an assertion that the chair was trying to push something through today. Yeah, yes. But I wasn't attempting to push anything through, and the assertion is inappropriate. Feedback wouldn't be relevant. I'd suggest because they've been regionalised for some time, their feedback might actually be relevant for both the good and bad. Has not worked in their favour, and there could be lessons from now several years that could be. Staff might disagree with that, so hence the need to consult broadly within the organisation, not just. And the resolution always, whatever the wording of this, always by law, by the Local Government Act, is required to be consulted with staff before it can be implemented, no matter what decision we make today. So it goes to them, the neighbouring but at the JCC, it comes back to us anyway. The joint consultant of the Gold Coast. The Gold Coast City Council recently adopted, in consultation with their CEO, compulsory vaccination by the end of January. The JCC's pushed back, that's now been delayed indefinitely, even though it's a resolution of council. So the responsibility of the JCC in these matters is quite substantially more powerful than definitely was not attempting to. It clearly provides council with see it come back again, even if the feedback is positive, but definitely resent the assertion that I was trying to push something through without consultation. Consulting a section of the workforce because it works. I was only merely pointing out that perhaps they need to be consulted as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Resolution, I don't think it significantly changes the intent, so we don't need to come up with reasons as to why we haven't gone with the officer's recommendation. Councillor Rogers, any further feedback?
As in adopted. It may
And that's in line with what you suggested.
Yeah, no, thank you, I appreciate that, really good.
Councillor.
Councillor Arthur, that first motion didn't say that we're going to consult. I know
Much more transparent than perhaps the original one was.
better articulates the intent.
And the process. Councillor Peebles, I want to go back to your very first comment, and I have considered it whilst we've been discussing this. I think an open meeting of council to seek the executive staff that are in the room, given the potential for it to compromise their contractual discussions that they may then be forced to have with the CEO around their role in a revised structure, and vice versa, it may compromise the CEO's negotiating ability if council were to adopt this about the best fit for staff. So on the same token that their advice should be necessarily sheltered from council. However, I think that given that there's a formal, we've articulated formally now the fact for further ongoing consultation and feedback, that there will be opportunity for 7 of us to receive that advice and to help formalise that as Mayor, and without even consulting our policy on this for councillors, but as Mayor I can seek advice from any member of council. I will, on your behalf, ask that question of the staff in your presence so that they have full protection to provide an answer that can't be in any way compromised or used in a compromising manner. But I am mindful of the fact that I'm not comfortable that
in the first instance. If, once we've had that conversation and the advice from those staff is that they're comfortable with that being shared, but even asking that question of them in open meeting could put them on the spot. I'm not going to ask them today, but very shortly in this consultation process, I will ask, should they like to and be of a mind to share that advice, I will ask that. But it's not that I'm against the transparency of doing it in an open meeting, I'm just aware that they have employment contracts with council and I'd hate to jeopardise either that or the flip side of that council's ability to negotiate with them on the renewal of those contracts at some point in the future. So, out of order, but I think it would be best placed in another setting.
No, I can live with that, Mr Mayor. That's the question anyway.
Well, I think by me asking for that advice, it provides the fact that you councillors have the protection of the fact that I asked it, not you.
Fine, and I don't want to put any be detrimental to the Woodford DMs either, so I'm understanding of that. I would like to just say to the acting CEO also, but is that when you said before there that, you know,
CEO,
Oh,
just
correct. Yes, it should. Sorry. Councillor Gleeson, thank you. Second, Councillor Hanson. 7-0. Councillors, I think we need a break.